quit having these dreams. I mean, whenever you hear somebody use the word wish, I wish I had what Frank had. I wish I had Jillian's smarts. I wish I had a Lamborghini. Wish is just a synonym for I'm too lazy to work hard for it. You'll never hear me saying wish. Think about it. When you you hear somebody say the word wish, take out the word wish and say, what they're telling you is they're not willing to work for it.
Hi, Frank. It's so good to see you again.
Jillian, it's been a couple years, but this is going to be our last podcast ever. The last night ever. No, I'm kidding. It's not. Listen, I knew I was coming on with Jeff, but I didn't know you were going to be here. So awesome that I got to both.
Oh, really? Oh, no, wow. Okay. Well, I like to think of it as a special treat.
Yes, it's a special bonus. When I saw your face there, I mean, you didn't even have to bother with your eyeliner and your makeup and all that off camera. You look just fine.
Says Frank McKinney.
Yes, that's right. I already got mine on before we got on air.
Yeah. So Frank, super great to have you again. So you were on the show before, it's been it was during COVID, early COVID, right? Like when we were coming out with the Coronavirus Collective, which you were nice enough to write a chapter for. But it's been a long time. So why don't you tell us what you've been up to the last 3 years?
3 years. Well, we've released 2 books, one called Adversitology, Overcoming Adversity When You're Hanging On by a Thread. No, not that one.
No, that's the newest one. I have Adversitology over there. I'm sorry. I apologize. Right. I grabbed the wrong one.
You and I bond over Adversitology because that book was prompted based upon an illness that I had contracted, disease, however you want to call it. I call it an intruder. That you have the very same thing. And so, I kind of wrote a book on how to overcome physical, financial, relational, or spiritual adversity when you're hanging on by a thread, because I certainly was. And then when we toured that book for about, a couple, 3 months. And then I've always had this idea to combine photography with aspirational thoughts, quotes, ideas, sound bites. Went back to 1998. Actually, I went back to 97. I've written 9 books. Some manuscripts that weren't even picked up. We called through over 1,115 thoughts, quotes, and ideas from everything I've written, not just in books, social media posts, website posts, webcasts. I had a team of 7 people going through, taking the best of the best. We got it down to 1,100, and then for the book, I had to bring it down to 261. And then I thought, okay, that's still a lot. Like you're going to like some of the thoughts, you're going to remember some of them, you're going to dislike. What are you going to do with the ones you really love? Took myself back to like when I was 5 or 6 years old, learning how to read. Cat, the word cat, there was a picture of a cat. Dog, there was a word dog and a picture of a dog. I've been in photography for about 5 years, and I've taken pictures all over the world. So what I did is if you are in the action chapter or the love chapter or the risk chapter or the God chapter, hope chapter, and you read there's 10 chapters, 1 word per chapter, one word title chapter. So God, hope, love, risk. If you're in the hope chapter and you see a quote, thought, or idea that you like, there's an image right next to it. That's a full bleed, the full page. That image helps you retain the thought, quote, or idea. When you say, what was that thought, quote, or idea? Oh, that was a beautiful sunrise or the beautiful breaking wave that Frank took. It's crazy how people are relating to that. And there's, my last book, well, before Adversitology was Aspire, it was 111,000 words. Jeff, there's probably, 10,000 words in this book. I mean, it's pretty short.
Yeah. I think I read, if you were just going to read through it and not spend time on it, you could read it in an hour or so, I think, maybe 2 hours.
Yep.
But I mean, for me, I started reading it that way. And about, page 5, I was like, whoa, I got to slow this down. Like, this isn't a just read straight through it. It's more like kind of pick through it and pick out wisdom here and there.
It's almost like I suggest people use it like an oracle. In other words, if you're in need of taking action, you're stuck. Well, then go to the action chapter. If you've lost all hope, go to the hope chapter. If you need to take more risk in your life, go to the risk chapter, because all those thoughts, quotes, and ideas in the risk chapter relate to risk, and so do the photos. It's kind of like curating fine wine with a meal. That's kind of how we pick the photographs to go with the thoughts, quotes, and ideas.
Yeah, I love the. Go ahead, Jillian.
Oh, well, when I started reading through it, like Jeff let me borrow his copy for a minute. And when I started reading through it, the first thing I thought was, you can't read this book all in one sitting. You got to sit. It's almost like if it's 261 quotes, read one quote a day or something like that, and meditate on
Yeah,
that
I thought
quote
about doing the
a day.
365, one a day, but that's so kind of cliche. I just said, look, guys, we came up with 261 that made the cut, going through various kind of minds that were on this think tank. And then we had to pair photographs. So there's 135 photographs that started out with 898. Cut that down, cut it. So some pages will have 2 or 3 quotes per photo.
Okay.
And these photos, they're very it's not like just sunrises and sunsets. Like there's some very evocative photo. There's a laugh chapter. I don't know if you were there when I saw you at the homeless shelter. I lit these homeless. I was on a tour that took us to 85 homeless shelters, soup kitchens, food pantries, detention centers, abused women's facilities, veterans facilities, etc. It's 17 different kind of care facilities. 17 different kind of care facilities. Homeless shelter being one of those. And we delivered the message of found in Aspirational Thoughts, Inspirational Images to over 5,000 homeless people. At the end of my talk, which you were there to see, we give them an opportunity after I read the 10 chapter titles, 1-word chapter titles, hope, God, love, introspect, thought, whatever. They get to choose. And it was very interesting to see on that book tour, again, 85 venues in 70 days in 60 cities over 11,990 miles, that the most requested chapter, and this makes sense, I guess, it was hope. The second most requested chapter for me to read from, like really these are hardened, most of them, hardened homeless people. When I say hardened, they've been on the streets for a long time. Most of them have a different skin color than me. I walk in the room with purple hair and ripped jeans. I feel the daggers coming out of the eyes, thinking, is this going to be the one that I get sucker punched? Is this going to be the one where they carry me and throw me out the door? Mm-hmm. And it was amazing to see within 5 minutes, you were there to witness it. I use the word the Holy Spirit kind of melting the hearts of these people, where at the end they were asking me like little kids to read to them read me the death chapter, Frank. The death chapter was the second most requested chapter, and it wasn't about dying. It's about living while you're alive. That blew my mind. And then at the end, Jeff, you saw where we did this contest where everybody in the room got a ticket. You were there. There was 150 homeless people in that room. And 55% of the time, we tracked it on every single stop, 85 shelters. They chose the book over gift cards or cash.
Yeah, and that happened. Yeah, that happened in Chattanooga when you were here. I saw it with my own eyes. I was surprised. You said, okay, you won. You get a choice. You can either have cash, an undisclosed amount, right? Or you can have the book, or you can have a gift card. And the very first person picked the book.
We've done that similar exercise with other books. And I can understand Adversitology. Like that was actually about 60% of the time they chose that book. Because it was a book, overcoming adversity. Being homeless is a serious adversity. But this was a photograph book where I would go around, I'd show the photographs, and I'd read the quotes, and to have people, my only preface to their choice was, the book will feed your mind, the gift card will feed your stomach. Do not let the cash feed a bad habit, because most people don't even understand the way homeless shelters work. Is you sleep there at night, but then you have to go. Like, you can't just hang there all day. You got to go. And so if they won the cash, they could go be buying alcohol or drugs. And to see, now plenty of people took cash, of course. I mean, I don't care what they take. I told them, I care about you. That's why I'm there. And I'm not on a beach in Tahiti with my toes in the sand and a drink in the hand. I care about you. That's why I chose to take 70 days of my life and tour and meet with people like you. But I can't care about your decisions. I don't have the energy to care about your decisions. So if you choose to take the cash and put it up your arm, I don't care. I don't care. I care about you. I don't care about your decisions.
So Frank, I have a question for you.
So
this is going to be the full interview. Sorry. Jeff and I are going to be like, I want to ask the first question. I got the last one. Jeff, you get this one. Go ahead.
Okay. Well, I was just going to observe that when we were there at the place in Chattanooga, there was a elderly lady that came up to you and she said to you, I want my picture taken with you. Like, she didn't want the picture. She wanted your phone. You have a picture of the two of you together. And I thought it was really beautiful. And then not, I don't know, a week later, I actually saw it come out on your email newsletter, that picture of the two of you together.
Yes.
And it was just like a really beautiful moment because you could tell that you had impacted her.
It was so beautiful, Jeff. I mean, you remember her size? I'm
Yeah,
married
she was
to a woman
tiny, just tiny.
My wife is 5'1" with her hair teased up. This lady might have been 4.5 feet tall, weighed all of 80 pounds, not sickly. You know, she was probably what, 75 years old?
Yeah, I would guess that. Yeah.
Real just petite, but her smile and her hug. That's why I took thousands of photographs for this Netflix thing. That was a very endearing moment for me.
Yeah, no, it really meant a lot. And I was thinking about that when I saw it, it brought all that emotion back. So I know that you did this because you care about these people and you want to help them in whatever way you can. But like, what motivated you? Because this isn't the first time you've done something like this. I know you were swapping your hotel rooms with homeless individuals on a previous book tour. We talked about that. So what motivates you to keep showing up at these places over and over again?
I hope this doesn't come across as egotistical, but there's 8 billion people on the planet, and God has gifted every single one of them with one or multiple talents, gifts. Jeff, every single time I walked into one of those rooms, I was terrified that this was the one. I looked so different, and there's no like build up. My picture was maybe on a like an 8 by 10 put up on the wall by the executive director. And to see the impact within minutes, it's literally like a glacier melting before your eyes. And so I've been asked, what did you get out of it, Frank? Obviously, you're not going to homeless shelters to sell books. Like nobody's there buying books from you. I was grateful that I had the awareness and the discernment to use a gift in a situation that very, very other few people could have related in the moment. Because if you don't get them in the moment, some of these things, we thought we were going to be there for 15, 20 minutes. It turned into an hour and a half. And they were riveted. Not that I'm a great speaker. That was the gift. The fact that people that live on the street, they can read bullshit. They can read somebody who's in there just trying to, I don't know, take advantage of them or trying to convert them to Christianity or whatever people thought. They read bullshit. And for them to know that there was some sincerity on one front, Jeff, and that was just to deliver them hope. When I did this 5 books ago with my book, The Tap, where I swapped places and I was delivering a message of hope, a different message, but I message of hope them. I thought I was going to change everybody I came in contact with. Now, more enlightened, I know for a fact that if I was in front of 5,000 homeless people, which is about what we were in front of, I'd probably change the lives of, after that day and maybe a year later, 2%, 3%. But I know for a fact, for that hour that I was there, they forgot about their problems. I know for a fact, for that hour, they knew that somebody was there that asked their name, that knew that they cared about the person that I was speaking to. Cynical or not, I tell you, there were 2% cynics and 98% just it was a I want to say a love fest, but it was people that were just know that I was there for that reason, to use that gift.
So I find this fascinating that you keep doing it over and over and over again. And then you did one of your book tours you did in your Yugo. You drove all over the country in your Yugo. But the question I have is, you've been doing this for so many years. It's not like you did one this year and you did one last year. You what are we talking, like a decade apart between when you started doing it and now?
15 years.
Yeah. Okay.
15 years apart.
What I want to know is, what are you seeing that's different in people now? What has changed? We know there's a greater proliferation of homeless people now, but what are you seeing different in who they are, how they're acting, just anything that you've noticed from the 15 years ago to now?
Yeah, so I wasn't as aware of, I had the same preconceived notions. Let's call it a prejudice. Let's just call it what it is. It was a prejudice that everybody out there was a drug addict, that they were alcoholics, and they certainly had mental health issues. What I have learned, and I was really tuned into this time, 70% which would be what, 3,500 of the homeless people that we came in contact with. I've met 15,000 now face to face, ask their name. 70%, give or take, are lucid, educated, and well-spoken. 30% are out there talking to the light post or talking to the park bench. That, you know, there's some disconnect. That's the prejudice that we all have with almost every homeless homeless person. The second thing is, many of the homeless people that we see are happier than the three of us put together. Don't go out and project your Western idea of joy and happiness upon them and assume they're unhappy. Quit trying to fix them and save them and throw government programs. Leave them alone. I would say there's, and this isn't 70 and 30, but there's 30%. Some of them are lucid and educated. Some of them are not. 30% are completely in bliss, living off the grid. They do not want to be a part of whatever the society that we are a part of. And they're happy doing it. So leave them alone. Now, it's the family. Like, I know I see pictures of your kids. It's you, Jillian, a homeless mother living in her car that really wants a place for her family with her, you know, you're living in the car with your kids. That's where we should be putting the effort.
Okay.
That and the third thing is, when you see a homeless person. Now, let's back up. If there were 100 people that walked by a homeless person, 90 of them would kind of veer out of their way. And if they didn't veer out of their way, they will definitely turn their head the other way. They will not look at them. Of the 10 that do look at them, probably 5 are trained in some kind of caregiving. So they're used to it. Very few people that are just average, everyday people will go out of their way. What I say, get the courage up. It's going to make you feel uncomfortable. Don't give them the dollar bill or the, you know, or the gift card. Ask them their name and ask them to tell you a little bit about their story. That's simply acknowledging that they exist. Most homeless people they're living in like a force field, like they're invisible people. You know, we see them, but we go out of the way to disperse any energy toward them. And any energy we do put toward them is a negative energy. So those are the 3 things that I've seen evolve. Lucid, educated, well-spoken. Many of them are happier than the 3 of us, and everybody watching this put together. Leave them alone. Don't judge, just care.
So I really am intrigued by. Yes, so I'm really intrigued by this concept that, you know, leave the people alone that are happy, because, you know, there is something to be said about this, right? I think like being like, there was a guy who was homeless. His name was Dave, that was in my hometown when I was growing up. And I worked at a Subway type shop. It wasn't a Subway, but we made sub sandwiches. And he would come in occasionally and buy the very cheapest sub on the menu. And I was, you know, I got to be friendly with him, right? And there were other people around town that knew who he was and stuff. And you know, there was all these rumors about how he was secretly rich and all this, you know, just small town nonsense, right? Like, but I would talk to him and I would ask him things, and I learned pretty quickly that he actually was choosing exactly that. That he had a family, extended family that was willing to take him in, but he didn't want to be with his family. He told me that there was a certain amount of freedom that he got from being able to choose where he slept, that he loved to be in nature, and he was staying mostly under this viaduct that was by a river. And it's a beautiful area. And so I do hear what you're saying, that some of these people are just, that it's their choice and that's what they want. But it's also, you know, it's dangerous too, in a way, because this gentleman ended up being found froze to death a few years later. And I always regretted that. Like, even to this day, I think maybe I could have done something to help him, but I don't know I could have, because he was choosing his life. And there's consequences for the life choices we make. And certainly he could have just walked south. I mean, if you're really homeless, you can choose to not be in Michigan winter time, right?
Right.
But how do you respond to that? Because, like, I hear what you're saying, but I still wonder if there's something we should be doing.
Well, I mean, again, you have all these cities, states passing legislature, you know, against panhandling, against sleeping in a tent on the side of the road. And I'm not saying that's wrong. I guess there's blight that tends to, erode the tax base and all that. But, if there were of some of the facilities we went to, Jeff, that were run, there was this one toward the end. I can't remember cities now, but the city had given them 2 or 3 acres, and they had bought basically, what TED sheds are? Like they're these tiny little sheds. These things it was in Florida. I remember now. They were hurricane anchored down. They had little air conditioning units in them. People, I mean, they looked like barracks in an old army base. And if you were able to pay $50 a month or something, you got one of those. If you couldn't, they gave you a tent. There are places that it's working. It's like there's a passage in the Bible that says, "The poor you will always have with me." Well, the homeless you will always. There is no solution to that problem. Quit trying to solve the problem. It's never ever going away. But I say to the average person that walks by the homeless, if they're not bothering you, we try to fix things that because of the appearance of a guy who's sitting on a bench next to the Hallmark card store that makes you uncomfortable walking in there. What's he really doing to make you feel uncomfortable? Now, if he's yelling at you or something, then of course you got to do something about it. But most of them aren't. They're just like your friend is just keeping to themselves. As far as you feeling guilty about you having, you could have done something. Listen, Jeff, everybody dies. And the way he chose to die, who knows if he didn't die with a smile on his face, Yeah.
Well, he probably did. He's one of the happiest people I ever met. I mean, in reality, like you said, sometimes people are just happy. I mean, that's something that when I climbed Kilimanjaro, there were these, talk about a disparity of wealth, right? We're paying $10,000 to climb a mountain, and you've got a 20 people support staff, and these guys are making $10 a day to help carry your gear up the mountain and set up your tents, and we gave them tips and stuff on top of that. But I mean, still they were making, if they made $200 a month, it would be a miracle for them. Right. Yeah. And these were some of the happiest people I ever met in my life. They're singing and dancing and wanting to know about our lives and just being generally inquisitive. And I've thought that constantly since then. Whenever I, say to somebody, or I think to myself, I don't agree with this person's life choice for whatever reason, I try to remind myself, what makes another person happy has nothing to do with what I think should make them happy.
Well, that's being aware and being conscious of your thought. Most people don't think that way. When we were in Haiti after the earthquake, it was a long time ago, 2010. We had a search and rescue team we put together. We were pulling live people out of the rubble. Of the 85 survivors that were pulled out, we pulled out 4. I remember the night we were sleeping on the runway. We had to sleep on the runway because aftershocks were taking down buildings. We couldn't sleep anywhere else but on or near the runway of the airport. And we heard singing, and it was singing in Creole. And I asked one of our, Creole guys that was on our team, I said, "What are they singing about?" They were singing songs of praise and joy that, yes, they lost 2 of their kids, but God spared the 3rd one. These were songs of joy and praise. I mean, that's not something we would even comprehend. We would be mourning the loss of the 2. And maybe be hugging on the 1, but they were singing praise songs, and you could hear it echoing through the mountains of Haiti. That's the kind of stuff that's just so foreign, kind of like what we see with the homeless people. I would never. Was this one reporter? And I hate to say, I'm not going to say. She was very junior. She was out of college. Is this a homeless awareness tour? No.
Yeah.
No. Is this like who? No, it's not a homeless awareness tour. Everybody's aware of homelessness. This is an action tour to put hope back. And if you do something with it, great. If you don't, you felt good for the hour that I was in front of you and we shared time together.
Yeah, I think that takes a lot of self-awareness on your part, Frank, because I think that sometimes I used to, when I first started doing social media stuff, I was trying to convince everyone I know, you should invest in real estate. Real estate's the greatest thing ever. And, we're all real estate people, so we know there's a lot of advantages to being a real estate investor, but it's not for everyone. And it took me a long time to step back and say, you know what? And that's what Last Life Ever is about. Our show has been about this, is to step back and say, we want to help people live well, whatever that means to them. Whatever that is to that person, that's what we want to do. And that's been our mission for a long time here. And that's why we do the show and why we have the Facebook group and stuff. And that's actually one of the reasons why I love what you do, because you're so clearly just showing up and doing what you can and accepting that you're not going to be able to help everyone. It kind of reminds me of the parable of the sower of seeds, right? If you go out and sow seeds, some of it's going to fall on the path and it's going to dry up and die.
Right.
some of it's going to land in the fertile ground, and we just have to accept that we can't change those things.
Yeah, and I think when you're in front of a group of homeless people, and you're authentic in nature, you're authentic in your delivery, you're authentic in your message. I made it clear that I'm not there to hang out, and we're not going to dinner afterwards. We're going to the next city, but I also wanted them to know, as you at the outset, as I kind of set things up, is what's an author doing in a homeless shelter? Aren't we supposed to be in bookstores or radio stations or TV stations? No, this is an unconventional tour by an unconventional author to simply, you dumb it all down to deliver a message of hope to people who really need to hear it. And if you don't want to hear it, then fall asleep. A lot of people were sleeping when I was talking. It's all right.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. Frank, what do we do though, as a society? And maybe this isn't a question you're even looking to answer, but you talked about the mom who's in the car with their kids and things like that. How do we solve these issues? How does and I'll keep it to the United States because homelessness is a worldwide problem, but how does the United States solve these issues? What should be done?
Okay, so of the 85 venues we stopped at, six of them were family shelters. Mm-hmm. 4 of them were mixed family. When I say mixed, I mean mother, children, father, no mother, children. 2 of them were only fathers.
Whoa.
This was a new thing for me. This is a new thing. There were 4 different facilities I'd never seen before on these tours. Only fathers with their kids. Now, those were people who, obviously you have children, who had their children's best interest at heart. They were there not so much for themselves. They had to, kind of like when the air mask falls down in the airplane, they had to put their mask on first so they could take care of the child. I saw success stories. One of the places, when the families left, they had this wall that was painted, and there was a black line here. There were handprints. All the parents that had left, had gone on, to got jobs and got a low rent apartment, and all the kids' handprints were on the bottom. These are successes. So there are programs out there. We went into 2 facilities were called respite facilities. Jillian, if you're homeless and you have to leave during the day and you get hit by a car and you have to go to the hospital, you're not dead, you can't come back because they can't give care to you. There are facilities out there that simply take in homeless people that need care. LGBTQ, if you're of that community and you're homeless, you are, I'm going to use the word, pounded, beaten up, abused on the street. HIV only positive shelters. These were all new. They're working. Listen, there are programs out there. There was one in Nashville, the Nashville Rescue Mission, I think was the name of it. I mean, I said, how many directors, I would pay to have some of the directors of these crappy facilities that I went to that had mold on the walls, and they could have cared less. They just wanted our donation and want us to get out of there. There are ones that do work, and they're not about what I like most about it is, and I think, Jeff, you heard me say this, I can't stand the word charity. Charity exacerbates poverty. Look at, like, you. I'm a little older than you, but in Ethiopia, remember Ethiopia back in the 80s and 90s? Ethiopia's the same problem because people threw money at it. Yeah, it's self-sufficiency and self-sustaining programs that make it work. And the ones, I have to say it, that were faith-based and they were self-sustaining, they taught self-sufficiency instead of welfare and entitlement.
Teach them
those were the ones that people were on.
Yeah.
Yes, but the hard part is most of these people are brought up with a welfare mentality. There's nothing. You heard me say, Jeff, there's nothing wrong with the welfare systems. There's nothing wrong with the entitlement systems. It's the mentality, the welfare mentality, and the entitlement mentality that's very toxic. Once that's absorbed, it's very hard to get out of the system.
Yeah, it's interesting you bring up Ethiopia. I spent some time in Ethiopia. There's some pretty extreme poverty there, and it's there's a lot of work to be done there. There's a lot of work to be done around the world, and one of the things I like about you is you're not just doing it here. Like you talked about being in Haiti after the earthquake, but you with your book, you donate all the proceeds, and I know you donate a lot of additional money to the foundation that you started to help create sustainable villages in Haiti. Right. So you've made, I think, 30 some now, right?
Yeah, we're on our 32nd village in our 22nd year, providing a self-sustaining existence to over 14,400 children. They were eating, you remember that very graphically, eating mud flavored with bouillon and lemon juice. I had a piece of bread there that I was kind of simulating was hamburger. That even for homeless people, they thought that was amazing. I'm not amazing. They thought that was
shocking.
Shocking and just incomprehensible that children are eating dirt. So yeah, in Haiti, man, it's a whole new game over there. Like the homeless, if you don't want to be homeless in the United States and you're hungry, tonight you can find a place to stay and you can get a free meal. That doesn't work in Haiti. There's no such thing like that as Haiti. So we have to build self-sustaining villages. We have been now, well, we're on our 32nd. It's not done yet, but 31 for 31, meaning they are all still self-sustaining. We had the Clinton Foundation contact us a few years ago to find out how in the world do you build an entire self-sustaining village, 50 houses, community center, school, church, clinic, renewal food, clean drinking water, and some form of free enterprise sprinkled over the top of the village so it can be self-sustaining. How do you do that for around 350 grand? 50 houses plus the community center, school, church, clinic, blah, blah, blah. You know, so
that's actually it's an impressive trick.
It's impressive, man. I mean, these houses are very basic. They're almost like the TED sheds that I was referencing there, maybe a little bit bigger. And there's latrines for bathrooms. But listen, they'll withstand an earthquake. They'll withstand the hurricanes. And they'll give these people a concrete shelter. And what begins when you have a roof over your head? Stability begins at home. And if you've got a stable roof over your head, your whole life can become stable.
Yeah, no, that makes sense to me. Has it been, we do have to wrap up here in a second, but has it been harder in Haiti in recent years? Because there's been a lot of political turmoil the last few years in Haiti.
Yeah, we don't have time to go into it. It's been, you see a lot of stuff in the news on Israel and Hamas and on Ukraine and Russia. Multiply that by 10 in Haiti. It's just abhorrent what's going on there. Let's leave this at this because I'm a positive person. We used to be able to build a whole village in about 9 months. Whole village, start to finish. Now it's the last one took us 3 years.
Yeah, that's difficult. All right, so Frank, before we wrap up, there's two things I want to ask you, and I'll save the second one for last, which is, how can people follow you? How can they support? It's called Caring House, right? Which is the name of your foundation. So I definitely want to ask you that. But there's a quote in your book that I really love, and I want to ask you about this quote because I might not get another chance to ask you this, right? Like I don't talk to you that often. So in the introspect chapter, you say, "Have aspirations that violently wake you up and make you come true." That you make come true. Mm-hmm. I love this quote. So when you're thinking about that, like, tell me what the thought was behind it.
Because I think I get so tired of hearing people come up to me or in an interview say, I have these dreams. Well, dreams are something you have when you're asleep. Aspirations should violently wake you that you go out and make come true. Listen, I got sisters that graduated from Notre Dame and Stanford. They will out debate me. I will outdo you. I'm a doer. I'm simply a doer. And that even my book Aspire, how to create your own reality and alter your DNA, which you came down for, Jillian. Remember when we did that for your whole group? Create your own reality. Don't let somebody else create it for you, and alter and change your DNA. Quit having these dreams. I mean, whenever you hear somebody use the word wish I had what Frank had. I wish I had Jillian's smarts. I wish I had a Lamborghini. Wish is just a synonym for I'm too lazy to work hard for it. You'll never hear me saying wish. Think about it. When you you hear somebody say the word wish, take out the word wish and say, what they're telling you is they're not willing to work for it. Mm. And that statement in that book, in the introspect chapter, which is a great chapter to read like on a Sunday when you're doing your introspection, your journaling, or whenever you do it, that was meant to say, quit having dreams, have aspirations that violently wake you that you may come true.
Yeah, I love that. And I wanted to end on that note. So tell us, Frank, how can people support what you're doing with Caring House? How can they follow you? What's the best way to check your stuff out?
Well, follow obviously the social media usual. Just go to whatever, Instagram or Facebook. But I think the place to start, honestly, it was about a year and a half ago since I last saw you, Jillian, that PC Magazine of all the magazines did a piece, and they singled out, or not singled out, there was like a dozen websites. They called ours Disney on a desktop because you can go to Frank McKinney. Yeah, it was awesome. You can go to frank-mckinney.com. You can You can read sample chapters. You can listen to sample audible chapters. You can take a tour of about 28, now we're not up to date, of the villages in Haiti. You can tour through the $50 million mansion, the $15 million mansion, the $20 million mansions we sold. I mean, you can spend hours on that website, and it doesn't cost you a dime. That's where I would suggest people go, frank-mckinney.com. When you're there, click on the Caring House link. There's 78 different donation options that start from a $4.75 chicken all the way up to a $350,000 village, which we've had people donate for an entire village. Don't tell me. This is one thing I want to leave your viewers with or listeners. I'll do all this when I'm rich like Frank. That's easy for him to do because he's got a lot of money.
Yeah.
Okay. So give up a latte for one day, which is about $4.75, depending on where you live. Buy a chicken. Donate for a chicken. Those people do not eat the chickens right away. They'll live off the eggs until the chicken stops laying eggs, and then they'll eat the chicken. $4.75. That chicken lasts for about a year before they will eat the chicken. So I'm not taking anybody to Haiti. Hey, I'll get an email. I guarantee you after this that says, hey, I'd love to go to Haiti and help you build villages. If I took you to Haiti, I just took a job away from somebody. We don't do that. We don't do the Habitat for Humanity model. We employ all the Haitians. We buy all their material. I will buy their chickens for $4.75, but we need your money to do it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah, Frank, thanks so much for being here. Thank you for coming. And, you're always welcome back on the Last Life Ever podcast. We love having you. So when book number 35 comes out, because you're just going to keep writing books. I heard you tell everyone you're going to retire from real estate, and that lasted like 5 minutes, I think. So
no, I'm kind of retired from real estate. I mean, we're doing a little stuff in North Carolina, but I love the books. And Jillian, we have to come back, do another one, because Jillian didn't get asked hardly any questions. She got robbed. I mean,
I know. I do want to do another one because I do have a lot of questions. There's like some deep things I want to get into. So we'll schedule another thing. And we also want you to come and speak to our mastermind. If you would, we have, I don't know if Jeff told you, but we have 5 pillars in our mastermind that we focus on: purpose, empowering habits, building financial wealth, going on great adventures. And then the 5th one, which is what I want you to come and talk to our group about, is giving back to your community and how to do that effectively. Because you just said some huge things that right there in that very last, you said huge things this entire interview, but in that very last moment about, going on mission trips and taking away jobs from local people and things like that. I know people don't think of that. And so I think it would be so amazing if you could come to our mastermind into 2 months or so when you're ready and talk about those things, because it would just be so valuable.
I would love to, but listen, until then, you just named your 5. I will tell you, none of those other 4 pillars are held up and begin with purpose. I don't know how you structure your mastermind, but for me, people say, I'm so passionate about this. Forget passion. I can be passionate about chocolate. It's not good for me. Once you find your purpose, that true, what I call your aspirational calling, all those other pillars really are held up by that. Starts with people identifying their purpose.
Yeah, I mean, that is why we made it our very first pillar, right? So pillar number 1, discovering your life's purpose. And we think you have to work on all these things simultaneously, but I agree with you. The purpose is super, super important in that process.
I'm not taking more of your time. We'll talk later, but I think you need to establish purpose before the other pillars even come into play. You can't work on all those things simultaneously. If you don't have purpose, you don't even know what you're doing.
Purpose. Well, you can come and talk about whatever you want.
Yeah, you can come talk about all of them if you want. We'll be good. But listen, we can have this conversation offline. It doesn't need to be on the podcast. Frank, thanks for being here so much. We really appreciate you. Jillian, would you like to remind our audience of anything?
I would like to remind everybody to live the best version of your last life ever.